All right. Welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you here in Savannah. We're glad to have you. For the rest of our board, this is Savannah Pace, and she is our new education reporter for the Herald Journal.
Nice to have you here.
We will go ahead. Well, first of all, let's see. It's November 7th, 2019, and we are having our study session, and we will begin with roll call, starting with Larry.
Larry Jepson, board member.
Randall Bagley, board member.
Steve Norton, superintendent.
Roger Pulsford, board member.
Kathy Christensen, board member, and I'm not sure about
Chris?
Thank you, Chris, but I think he's coming.
Okay.
Board member.
Jeff Nielsen, board member.
Terry Rhodes, board member.
And Dale Hanson, business administrator.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and have the pledge and the mission statement by Superintendent Norton.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a mission statement for our school district. Our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world.
Thank you. All right, I doubt we have any public input. Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and begin with our reports, and we'll begin with you, Kurt, for the clubs for Skyview.
Assuming we're looking at the junior high school club and I know the name's scary, but
Whitewater?
But if you read the application, it's not scary.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So those are the two clubs that we're taking a look at right now.
Okay.
We were hoping to get approved.
I had one question. They said they would have lifeguards. Who would be the lifeguards?
Those lifeguards that we have that are employed in our swimming pool, it would be those lifeguards.
Okay.
Most of those are high school students that have been employed as lifeguards.
All right. Does anyone have any question on the clubs? Okay, if you haven't had a chance, look it over by next meeting, and then we'll vote on it then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to, Jeff, do you want to move up right now, or do you have time to?
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Then
you.
we'll just go on down the list. We may have to throw you in here early somewhere, depending
Okay.
on how it goes. Kirk is going to give us a little training on the board legal responsibilities.
Good evening. The superintendent wanted me to give a brief overview of the school board's legal responsibilities, and in your self-assessment, it's described as board members understand their legal responsibilities as trustees and representatives of the school district. So this is a pretty broad topic, and I'm not going to delve into a lot of the nitty-gritty, but I do want to give kind of a general overview of what it means to be a public school board member and trustee. And of course, as we go through this, if you have questions, please stop and ask. First, a school district is considered a public corporation, which is a legal subdivision of the state, vested with the powers and duties outlined in statute. You are the sovereign power, the highest authority of the school district, and as such, each one of you represent specifically the residents in your local school districts, or political districts, but also the district as a whole. And in statute, you're reminded that you do not represent a special interest, but that you represent the best interest of your patrons and the students of the district. The word trustee is used in the board assessment, and trustee is another name for a board member. It doesn't have a specific definition in statute, So anytime you see the word trustee, just think a board member. But a trustee legally is defined as one in whom power is vested to exercise that express power authority for the benefit of another. And as school board members, you exercise your authority, again, for the benefit of your patrons and ultimately the students in our school district. One of the responsibilities that you have is to follow the open meetings laws, which all school board meetings are governed by, and then to ethically act in the best interest of your patrons. I spoke with, is it Richard Stoll, down at USBA to try to help me kind of summarize some of the concepts that are contained within your legal responsibilities. And he pointed me to the USBA board evaluation where 5 areas are kind of outlined. Continuous improvement, advocacy, community engagement and collaborative relationships, accountability, and foundations for effective governance. And again, those are very broad concepts, but I think that they do ultimately summarize what each of your legal responsibilities are. One of the enumerated responsibilities that you have, actually 2 of those, are to hire, appoint, and evaluate both the superintendent and the business administrator, and then continuously monitor their progress. And then within that statute, you recognize the superintendent as the chief executive officer of the school district, and that you interface with him appropriately as he interfaces with other district and school administration. In the Utah Code, specifically Section 53G-4-402, there are, let me think, 23 specific duties outlined in that statute. And I'm going to pass that out to you right now. Let me send this down. This is 4 pages, and some of these are quite general in the way that they describe your legal responsibilities, and some of them are very specific. This is a statute that gets updated and amended on a regular basis. But if you wanted kind of a succinct 4-page summary of your legal responsibilities, I would say that this would be the best summary of that. And specifically, if you've all got that now, there are 4 of those enumerated duties that the board shall comport to. And if you'll go to the second page, number 14, I think is very relevant here. It says a local school board shall adopt bylaws and policies for the local school board's own procedures. And that's something that we talk about here in board meetings on a regular basis. We update, we amend, we add, and sometimes we take away policies as we continually try to comport with that provision. And number 15, right below that, says a local school board shall make and enforce policies necessary for the control and management of the district schools. And then lastly, and this is probably the best one to leave you with as far as a general summary. If you go to page 4, number 20, this is what I would call the catch-all provision. And if you wonder what your responsibility is, this would be the best sentence to summarize that. A local school board shall do all other things necessary for the maintenance, prosperity, and success of the schools and the promotion of education. You've got the statute there that you can go through, and if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask, I hopefully could answer those. But in a 5-minute summary, that is your responsibility as board members and trustees of the Cache School Board.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Kirk while he's here?
Kirk, is there a summary of this summary?
If there is, it would be boiled down to those 5 things that
Okay.
the School Board Association outlined.
Okay.
Thank you. We
Okay,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Do you happen to have an extra copy for us?
Yes, I do, yep.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, the district per diem and mileage rates. Mike and Dale?
The district's policy on mileage reimbursement rates and per diem rates is found in the 4,000 section of the board policy. And it was last updated in June of 2008. And so there had been some requests for us to consider updating those rates after that much time. So Mike had asked me to go ahead and kind of do a survey of districts around the area, and districts that are kind of in like situations as us, just to see how our policy compared to theirs. And I know here's copies of that if you'd like to have that for your reference, but so our current per mile reimbursement rate is 45 cents per mile. And many districts, as you look there, have followed with the federal reimbursement rate, which gets reevaluated every year. And it's currently just over 58 cents. I think it's 58.5 cents per mile. And so if you looked at some of these districts here on the mileage rate they're reporting, that's on the second column of data there on the left side of the page. It'll show that many of them do have the 58 cents or the federal rate. So they update theirs automatically every year. A number of them have a 2-tiered mileage reimbursement, which has one rate if they're using their own car just for their own desire to drive their own car, and another rate if there was, if they really have no choice but to drive their car. So if a district vehicle is available, a lot of times they'll have a lower rate that they could be reimbursed for driving their personal car, and a higher rate if they have no choice but to drive their own car. And I know Superintendent and I talked about that, and I really struggle with how districts monitor in every situation whether a car is available for that person at that time, and really felt like that could get a little muddy in trying to enforce something like that. But we also looked back and figured that gas prices and that since 2008 really are about the same as where they were then. And so our recommendation for that is to up the rate from 45 cents a mile to 50 cents a mile. Not go to the full federal rate, but felt like that was a good consideration. And then we also looked at per diem rates, which is a reimbursement for meals when you are out of the valley for district work. And again, those rates are all over the place. There's a number. There's both a state rate and a federal rate that is updated with that. And so for the Utah rate itself, that center column of numbers at the very bottom, it'll show the Utah per diem rates. Breakfast $11, lunch at $14, dinner at $20, for a total of $45 per day. And again, that's in-state. If you look just above that, you can see what our current rates are. For example, breakfast is at 7, lunch at 10, dinner at 17 for in-state. And then we were looking to see if the state had an out-of-state approved rate. And it was interesting, what I first thought when the numbers I wrote down, I thought was the state out-of-state rate. But then looking back at it, was actually what you would reimburse someone from outside of the state coming in and traveling within the state itself. So they didn't have a published out-of-state rate as a Utah state rate. The federal rates themselves are actually, a lot of them are very like city specific. So the rate if you go into New York City was different than if you went to St. Louis or if you went to Chicago. It was a different rate for every city pretty much, and then a standard rate for all of the cities that weren't on the list. And that totaled, I think, about a $70 reimbursement for a full day, mixed between the 3 different meals. But the one I really liked was one that Logan was using, and this is off it's called a GSA rate, like a general standards, I can't remember the full acronym what that stands for, but it is a type of state rate. It's not by the Utah state government, but by another state agency. So it has actually a 6-tier rate based again on kind of locations as to where they go, but didn't want to get into the minutia of having so much variability in the rate itself, and felt like where the state rate is up about what are we, $4? Well, in total, it's up actually $11 for the day in compared to our current rate. And so where our current out-of-state rate is $45, the closest thing there would be actually go to that center column, so that you would have lunch would be reimbursed at 14, or excuse me, breakfast at 14, lunch at 17, and dinner at 28 for a total of $59 a day. And felt like if we just kept it simple with a straight 50 cents a mile, and then following the in-state rate, and then this middle rate is an out-of-state rate, that it looked like it was a very fair rate, I think, given the way the economics compare now from then, and felt like it was a good gesture in trying to bring us closer to current the best we can. So I think that was actually the suggestion we have. And so the policy, as it's written, you should have online there on the board docs agenda. And the last page of that is, it would show then those rates right at the very bottom of the last page on that. It's actually a 3-page policy.
I don't know if anybody else can get to it off theirs, but we can't.
You couldn't get it?
I got it.
I got it.
Okay. Must just be this right side of the.
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay, and I can get you a copy of that. And it also updated in the section 4 for the teacher travel and convention travel. It referred to estimates as to what teachers could try to anticipate the cost of going to conferences and whatnot. And so I tied the rates that were recommended down below back up into the formulas there. Again, these are just estimates for teachers to use. It's not the final rates or anything, but felt like that was appropriate for keeping the entire policy current with that proposed update. So that's what we would recommend and present to the board, I guess, next time for approval.
Okay, anybody have questions?
Let me just tell you, Mike, do you want to explain to them where this all originated? Because it came from one of our high schools who had sent some people to Salt Lake.
Yeah, with our school land trust funds and also a TSSA funds, our principals are taking advantage of that and sending our teachers to, like, the national conferences that come into Salt Lake and all kinds of these learning conferences. And Brittany called me a couple days ago and said, I have my teachers down here at the conference, and our per diem rates aren't even covering what a meal cost is in Salt Lake right now. She says, is there any way that we can change or, update our current per diem rates as well as mileage? I said I would certainly take it to the board, and Dale was very willing to do that. And a comment that Dale made was, well, we're not going to increase anyone's budget. No, we're not. It's just that it's just going to take a bigger part of those funds that come for school land trust and TSSA. We can't control those budgets. They are what they are. But that's mainly what the principals are using to pay teachers when they go to these conferences.
So does that mess up their TSSA budget and their,
A little, but not much when
Okay.
we're adjusting this.
they can still
Oh, yeah,
cover it?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Hey, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Why not just peg the mileage rate to the federal rate, just so that you wouldn't have to update it in future years?
It's just a matter of how we want to operate it. And, Dale's mentioned, how we've operated in the past. And I think it's the board's decision on if there's a more automatic way to do it, or
Is there a more automatic way to do it?
We had to peg it to the federal rate because it gets updated annually. I mean, my only concern is that, even when you consider the last 10 years since it was last updated, or 11 years, there have been enormous fluctuations in fuel prices, and it seems like it would make more sense for us just to make that automatic. I mean, we're 8 cents below the rate based on this recommendation here anyway, but if there were to be some sort of shock, then we'd have to reevaluate independently. It just seems like it would be easier to peg it to the federal rate.
What's your opinion on that, Dale?
Yeah, the only thought I have is we'd have to modify the way that we have mileage reported, because we actually print the rate on the form itself. So somehow we'd have to keep everyone current as the rates change they complete that. But
It is on the backside.
the per diem's on there too. Yeah.
So is the mileage.
Yeah, so we could try to find a different way to make people aware of the rates, not have them formally printed on the claim forms themselves. That would be the only other concern, is if we had to worry about replacing forms every year for 50 cents or something.
Does that change annually, the federal rate?
It does,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
they
does,
reevaluate it annually. I don't know that they raise it every year, but
4.5% or 5 cents in 2008, 58 cents.
yeah.
So it's not a big, huge difference, really?
Would it be a problem where the federal rate probably changes on a January 1 and we operate on a little bit of the year? Ours change mid-year, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I'd recommend that it be set starting July 1, probably of the year you're already halfway into. That would give you some time to prepare for it a little bit.
Do you want to think about that before we vote on this policy, or do this for this year and change it next time, or
We
what?
we can bring you back both proposals
Like for next time?
next time, yeah.
I guess on the other side of the coin, I'm thinking that suppose that, which happened during the recession, that gas prices dropped significantly. Well, then if the federal rate is adjusted below, this district, then,
Yeah,
then that-
I don't know how low
that's bad.
it went, I don't know.
But
We haven't
anyway.
followed it, so.
The U.S. government fiscal year is October 1 to September 30, so it's not that much different.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's enforced on a calendar year basis, though, I believe. At least when it's reported, they show a 2019 rate or a 2020 rate. I'm assuming that was on a calendar, but maybe it is off on October.
But
rate.
that's what our fiscal,
Let
I
us
mean, like, we're
investigate
working
that
on
a
a
little further.
2020 calendar, or a
Right.
2020 budget,
Yeah.
even though we're in 19.
Yeah.
I've had years, I looked at some data all the way back to 97, and it's moved up and down just a little bit. It's not always an upward trend.
What did it do in 2008, 2009?
2008, it was 58.5, dropped to 55, and dropped again to 50,
Yeah,
and then started back up.
so that does
when we
It
came
does
out.
take that into account.
Will you just look into it and give us a recommendation next time? Or bring us both of them and,
Because I'm really fine either way. We can make either way work. But
okay.
So
Any
we'll-
opinions from other board members, one way or the
It'll be
other?
good to look at the options.
Yeah, we'll bring the options to you.
Okay, all right, thanks. All righty, we'll go ahead and move on then. Next is the school capacity study report. And Mike and Gary, or just Mike?
Well, we're going to make this a shorter meeting than you thought.
Awesome.
We did attach some forms in board docs, and since Gary and I have been talking a little bit more this afternoon, we still see some errors in the elementary numbers. The secondary numbers look okay. So at this point, we don't want to share the information yet. We're actually going to delete what's in board docs and be ready to present it to you again at the next board meeting, and just as information to you. But what Gary and I, just to let you know what Gary and I have been doing, we've been going out, and you can see on one of your documents the worksheet where it shows you all the different categories that we addressed with each principal in the building to come up with school capacity. And so we try to get fairly detailed with them when we try to create that and actually count up the rooms. Special ed rooms come up being a smaller capacity in the formulas than a regular classroom, as well as even some of the smaller art rooms and things like that have a different count and capacity. Then Gary has to wrestle with kindergarten kids being there only half a day, so you have to double the count, and so the counts gets, you don't want to double count anything, all right? So we think to give you the best information, we need to wait. We need to delay it another 2 weeks to give you some more better information on what we're looking like on capacity, if you're okay with that.
Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Now, I'll just give some, just some general guidance. So when you see some of these numbers and you see they're at 100%, okay? In general, that's the way we operate. That we don't run buildings without really getting right close to capacity. So when we get to the point where we're gonna go out for a bond, we have 100% capacity in the building, but we also have the mother hen and a whole bunch of little portables. So that when we open up the new school, it will be full. And that's happened with every school we've ever built except for Mountainside. And Mountainside has never, ever met its capacity, and we would have to bus kids in to there from somewhere else in the valley to get it to that point. So don't get too excited if you see the 90s and 100%. That's kind of where we operate, and then we add the portables, and then we get to the point where we have actual areas where we can demonstrate to parents that we have reached the legitimate capacity of adding portables, and the pressure starts to be able to do something besides adding portables. So just keep that vision in your mind, okay?
And what you're seeing on your sheet there, the portables are not counted in the capacity. What we're going to report to you is the capacity of the actual building. And just for one example, like at Spring Creek, Spring Creek's information is correct there, and it shows them over capacity, and they can operate like that because they have 2 portables sitting on that campus. All right? But those portables are not counted in the structure capacity of that building.
So,
Because otherwise, we'd be creating a false capacity picture
Right.
for you.
Yeah.
Okay?
but if you think about the portables, those kids are going to be in the halls, they're going to be
Yep.
in the cafeteria, they're going to be in the gyms.
And
all
that's
of
why
that.
we report it as over capacity, and those kids are in portables inside that building.
So they
as well.
are in the percentage. They are included, like Spring Creek is 103%
Yeah.
on here.
The
So
kids
they're
are counted,
included.
but
The kids are
the
counted.
actual capacity of the buildings, I'm just not going to put the portables in the building capacity, so it gives you a false feeling
So it
of
wouldn't be
what's going on.
103% if you counted the capacity of the,
Yeah, if I added 2 more portables, they'd be under 100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay?
No, that's the right thing to do, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what would happen.
So is Spring Creek counting the new rooms you divided?
The new rooms are in that count today for Spring Creek. Yeah.
I'm amazed at the parity on the high schools. That's, I mean, high 80s for everything except Skyview. And,
Yeah, Skyview's our smallest high school right now.
That's very intriguing.
You know,
No,
and
it's
and
rich.
one thing that is going to affect our capacity is and you'll see that in the formula, there's a prep factor. And everything that we're going to present to you includes a prep factor so that the teacher has his or her room during their prep. Now, you can gain a lot more capacity if every room is used every period of the day. I was down at the new Farmington High School a month or so ago, and that's the way they operate that school. When they build it, they built teacher office areas. That's where the teachers have their prep, and they're using every classroom every period of the day. But they've created space for teachers to have a comfortable prep area, you know, so.
But
And
in
Gary
the
has.
past, when we get that pressure on our secondary schools, we do take those rooms and turn them into a classroom and move the teacher out.
Yeah.
And it's not the best of worlds, but it's one of the things that we do in order to get the next school to capacity before we build it.
Yeah. And Gary has a little bit more challenge to work with that, where the secondary has a real true kind of a prep factor. There is a prep factor we have to allow for in the elementary setting, and he has to wrestle with that, and that's why we have to look at our numbers just a little bit more.
Okay, so I have a question on this, where the 3 middle schools are pretty full, and we said we probably would never build another middle school for quite a while because there's so much room there. Would we be able to build another middle school and kind of equal out the middle school to the high schools with what they've got now, or would it take a lot more?
We can certainly have that discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
that can happen, and what I want you to keep in your mind is North Cache and South Cache are large campuses. And if we build another middle school, which would be great to have a feeder middle school to each of our high schools, you're going to have 2 large high schools go like that. And maybe we can put other special programs or something in there, but they will have a lot of room compared to a Spring Creek and a Cedar Ridge if we keep Cedar Ridge. We'd have to actually add on to Spring Creek and
Well,
Cedar Ridge.
what would you have
make
to
it-
have in those middle schools then before you could do that 4th middle school? What percentage would you have to have in there?
Well, each high school, you want to plan about 900 students for the 2 grades. That's kind of the numbers you look at. If we start splitting up, like if we split South Cache, try to create those numbers with them in Spring Creek. And they're getting close. It's just that North Cache and South Cache are large schools
Yeah.
built to handle 1,200, 1,300 kids.
So we'd have to make sure we kept 1,200 kids.
Yeah,
But you can't
and you won't.
and have feeders.
When you build that
You won't have
4th middle school, you
You
will
won't.
not keep those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
Those buildings will have excess capacity.
Yeah, just because they're built big.
So
Okay.
when the Building and Bond Committee meets, that certainly is going to be a topic of discussion. Do we create that 4th middle school and let these other 2 buildings sit partially empty? Or do we continue to do what we're doing? Those are the issues that will be discussed.
Okay. Well, I might forget this question by the time we discuss that, but what other programs would you put in those schools if that happened?
Well, I know like in some of our high schools right now, Joel is putting in some special ed, what are they, kindergarten? Preschools. And they're in 2 or 3 of our high schools right now. When we start looking at those kind of programs, they can operate just as well in a middle school building.
Okay.
There's kind of factors like that.
Anybody want to ask any other questions before we get the data?
Yes, I wondered, is Ridgeline
Is that counting the new classrooms that are being built on this report today?
Yeah, because they're showing what percent capacity?
Okay, so the
What are they showing on capacity there?
87.6?
Yep, that's with their new 10 classrooms counted.
Okay, that was my question.
Their full capacity is 1,870, 1,870.
With the 10 classrooms, yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
I don't have a question, but just maybe a future agenda item, because this comes up perennially among certainly the people in my area, and it, the 2 times I served on the building task force, it just came up all the time. I think even though I feel like we all have a perspective that helps to answer this question from a political perspective, I do still hear a lot of people talk about the 2 separate districts in the valley. I don't want to have a discussion about it tonight because we don't have 3 hours, here to just have a far-ranging discussion. But as we talk about school capacity, I think it would be wise for us to, to address the issue not from the perspective of pursuing it, because I think that. I think that given the political requirements to do so, even if we wanted to make that effort, it would be, almost impossible. But I think that, at least as a school board, it would be really wise for us to consider how we address the issue. As soon as we bring up school capacity and, the possibility of any kind of expansion, this becomes, this becomes a huge issue for everybody. And I'm even hearing it from parents in the Logan School District. And so, I don't want to talk about it tonight, because I don't think we have the capacity or we've done the homework to discuss it. But at a future board meeting, I think mapping out, some sort of way of handling that in small bites as a means of preparing ourselves, doing the appropriate homework leading up to leading up to this kind of discussion about school capacity and expansion and so on would be a good idea.
The people who are commenting to you about it, is it to save money, or is that what they're looking into?
Let me just give you an example. I think the public perception, which I think is a little bit, perhaps misinformed based on our perspective, but, I think we need to keep an open mind about it. The public perception is that Logan, their population, especially in terms of their school-age children, is shrinking, and the cash population is expanding. And to maybe oversimplify, the issue, why not just combine districts so that they can use some of their undercapacity to accommodate our overcapacity? I think that's the kind of thing you hear in a nutshell. And I think if we talk about future expansion, then I feel like it's something that we want to be prepared to address in a logical, coherent way.
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yep, we'll talk about that for a future agenda. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to our board committee reports, and Jeff will have you go first.
Okay.
'Cause, even though Roger's not on there, he's going to report to us as well. But let's do the calendaring.
Okay. Mike, can I ask a favor, and you help me with these calendar options, since you're the one that set up such good options for us? Yeah. So we've got the options. Mike's actually, the committee met, and we've got 3 good options in front of us that are you've got listed or online there. So the talking points are the start date on options. Let's see, option 2. They would both. Well, let's see, option 2 and option 1 start on the 20th of August, and option 3 would be the 26th, a week later. In going through them also, We've got, you look at the Christmas break. Option 1 has 2 full weeks. And options 2 and 3 are from the 23rd on, so that's a difference. And then Thanksgiving break's the same, fall break's the same. So really the start dates, the Christmas vacation, spring break is the same, 1 full week. That would absorb snow days for all 3. And then another crucial one is the end dates. So in option 2, you would end before Memorial Day, May 28th. And then option 1, you'd end the 3rd, and option 3, you would end the 4th. The other difference is the professional development days. Option 2 gives 2 full-day principal-directed development days, and then option 3 also does that, and option 1 has 1 full day, right? So Mike, is there anything I'm missing?
The key points for
Yeah.
any member on the committee: when is school going to start? We want it to end before May ends, and we want a long Christmas break. We can't do it all.
That's right.
So no matter which one they choose, somebody's going to be disappointed.
I think he's done a great job getting
Yeah.
these options.
Oh,
I think there's some pretty good options there. And I'll hold my hand until we can just, till our committee decides. But that's what's before us. We're meeting again Monday, right? Mike, next Monday?
Committees are bringing back their preferences. They can assign to meet with their members and bring back
Yeah.
feedback.
So this is for your information, what the 3 options are. If there's anything that you see that is a talking point or something that you want to give input on, please let me know and I'll provide that input.
I remember the superintendent saying once he wouldn't want to start on a Wednesday again. Why? Because this was the first year we did, right?
Yeah,
That I can remember.
yeah, it causes all kinds of issues with when the new teachers come in, and then when we have our district breakfast, and when we get to the end, also when we have our ending social. So we just, teachers like that 2 days, and then we go to the end. So I just said it works out better for new teacher orientation and for our breakfast and everything that we do if we don't start on the Wednesday. You remember more than?
There's also, our teachers are on a 183-day contract. If you start on Wednesday, that means their first day of the contract is the Friday.
Yeah,
If you start on Thursday, their first contract day is the
Monday.
Right.
So it's that 1 weekend thing that's all.
The other thing I appreciated, Mike not giving any different options on spring break.
Oh,
That,
Yeah.
we can debate that for hours.
We're
and so-
already gonna get beat up this year, when it actually happens. Yeah, so be prepared for that. Because we didn't get the 5 days, which actually turns into 9 days when you add the 2 weekends. Yep.
Yeah.
That was going to be my comment. Thank you for putting the whole weekend there.
The other factor that just throwing a wrench in the calendar is all of our high schools are going to do a freshman orientation day.
Yeah.
And that's throwing another conflict into starting earlier.
Anyway,
Okay.
thanks, Mike, for your throwing the options out there. And if you have any feedback, please let me know.
All right, they look great. Okay, Roger's going to just give us a little quick update on the student input meetings.
Okay, we've scheduled our first meeting at Ridgeline on November 20th from 9 to 10. That's during their flex hours. And so Jeff, myself, and Randall are going to go to that first meeting, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll see how that goes, and then we'll go from there, right, Mike?
Right, you tell me, you want me to get another one set up?
Do we want to schedule another one, get it going, or do we want to wait and see how
What's your
Ridgeline goes?
opinion?
I don't know.
What's your opinion, Mike? Set it up or wait?
rules are pretty flexible. It's just really up to how fast the board wants to get out in those schools, so.
So we have 5 of them that we need to do. And what does everybody think? Get them done fast or spread them out?
Should we get another one scheduled in December?
December gets awful,
Mm-hmm.
awful crowded, and they're doing a lot of things. I'm saying, let's try the one. I'd like to try the ones, kind of get it behind us, and then hit it hard in January and February.
I kind of wondered if, are we going to do something standard in each one, like a format or something?
Not really, I
Just
don't think,
informal.
but it'll at least give us a trial run if we do one school, and I don't know who have you set up to meet with?
Brittany's getting that.
Okay, yeah, I guess if we leave it up to principals, but I don't know, I'd just like to try one.
See how it goes,
And
go from
then
there.
we can see
Okay.
if the group we meet with is kind of the group we'd like to see happen in all the other schools, or would we like to just leave it up to the principal who they decide to bring in?
So are you conducting that meeting, or is Mike, or is Roger?
I think you guys are,
In
that's
charge?
your meeting.
Okay, so Roger, you'll be in charge of that one?
Yeah.
And will you kind of jot down whatever questions you ask so they could be standard? Anybody have?
Anyone have questions that you would like us to ask the students? If
I-
you do, email them to me and
Okay.
we'll have a list.
All right. That sounds
And
good.
I think a portion of the meeting ought to be designed for you to ask questions, but there also ought to be a portion of it
For them
where
to
they just show
take their
you
comments.
what they want to show you. And, yeah, I think it ought to be both.
Okay. Hopefully, they'll choose students who are comfortable in speaking with adults, right? Or we don't know?
Yeah, I mean, but
So
I
we
wouldn't
might-
want that to be a deciding factor.
Okay.
Because I think there are kids, given the opportunity, might just shine.
And have some
So,
good
yeah.
suggestions. Okay, okay. Any other board committee reports that I missed? Okay. On the board president report, first of all, I really didn't have anything too much to talk about, but we did have, whoops, hang on. The salary augmentation. Everybody should have got the information on what the salary augmentation is, the suggestion is on it. Do you have any questions that you want to ask while you're here with the superintendent on that? Was that cleared up okay for everybody?
Yeah.
It's, takes about 2 weeks, and they're hoping to have it done by Tuesday, so.
Okay.
And in general, we haven't let that out to our employees yet, so I'm asking the paper to hold off on any coverage of that until we have a chance. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Can I say something about
Yeah,
that?
yes.
So I totally forgot that was part of negotiations. So when you sent the text, and I had just done open meeting law, I was like, wait a minute. So to me, it looked like we were altering the budget through
Without-
text.
Oh.
And so it would have been helpful if, I mean, texting's fine, if you just say, so remember, this is part of negotiations to do this augmentation, and this is when it's gonna happen. So those of us who are like myself and forgot all about it, then we're not thinking that we're violating open meeting law by discussing business through a text.
Okay. Well, I did get everybody back really quick on a text. It's the best report back I've ever had.
If we did it through Twitter, then it would be an open meeting.
Yeah.
Food for thought. Okay, just a couple of other things. Is everyone okay with doing a Christmas party again in December, first meeting?
Sure.
Okay. All right, I will, at the next meeting, get food assignments out to you, and we'll just do it again at my house. The second thing is, I got these 2020 legislative priority brochures probably from
Richard, I'm guessing.
yeah. So anyway, I'm wondering, is there anybody here on the board who could get one of these to one of our legislators, because you live close to them?
I can give one to Casey.
I can give one to Val. Let's see, maybe.
Okay, anybody else?
I can take one to Lyle when I go to the CEF board meeting,
Okay,
because his office is in the same
right
building.
there. Okay, anybody else close by, live by anybody? Okay, and I'll figure out how to get the rest of them out to them, okay? Thank you. And the next thing, you got information about the National School Board Convention, and it's a long ways in the future, but our reservations have been made, and our
Hotels?
Registration.
no,
Flights,
no,
transportation.
keep going.
Per diem.
What did I say? Registration? Our registration. Okay, our registration and hotel has been paid. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, we usually book the hotel pretty close to the convention center, but that makes it kind of far away for the spouses to get to all of the places that are sightseeing places for them. So it's going to be booked closer to the center of things, and then we'll travel by shuttle to the convention. Is everybody okay with that? And then another thing to kind of think about is, when would you like to leave? Do you want to go on the Thursday? Do you want to go on the Friday? Do you want to try and get back on the Monday?
I don't want to do a red-eye flight.
Okay, I think we have all tried that.
Turn and talk to your little guy right there, sitting there on the end.
He didn't enjoy that any more than I did.
So anyway, be thinking about that, and we'll kind of gather that information as we move along. Okay, is there anything else anybody needs to coordinate here? Okay. Superintendent?
Well, just a couple items. One, the tax reform committee is probably still meeting right now, maybe in their last meeting. If press coverage is correct, they are going to propose a substantial decrease in the income tax, and they are going to put the food tax back on, and they are going to postpone dealing with the constitutional amendment until the regular session. So it's in the neighborhood of a 500 million tax cut.
For education?
For education. However, they did say in that coverage that I read that they're going to move higher ed off of income tax back on to sales tax. So I don't know how that would happen, because if they do that, any increase they're going to get in sales tax is going to be eaten up by taking care of higher ed. So that part didn't make sense to me. So probably coverage in the morning. I don't know how many of you are on Utah policy. Dale? Okay, if you want to get a good website that keeps you appraised of what's going on in politics in Utah, it's called utahpolicy.com. It's free. They put out a thing every morning about 6 a.m. and you get all the political coverage from the state of Utah and nationally that you'd want. And it takes what it is they take everything off the news wires, out of the local papers, Salt Lake Tribune, Deseret News, and they just line it up for you. And you can I usually spend probably 15 to a half hour every day. And it's just a great site if you want to know what's going on. That's where they'll probably have the best coverage of what took place today. You were listening, Roger was listening to KVNU, and apparently they're planning a 3-day special session in December.
And they're going to meet again on the 22nd.
This committee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So then they'll decide if they have the special thing in December, but they are meeting the 22nd.
Yeah. Lots of issues, lots of concerns. It'll be interesting. If we can get them to hold off till January, that's the kind of the pause that I was hoping maybe we could get. And maybe maybe if they get the sales tax side worked out, maybe they won't have an appetite to go after the amendment. But I do know the superintendents are invited to a meeting on the 14th, which is a week from today, and we will be explaining the proposal, what they would come up with if they marched ahead and did away with the earmark. They are trying to come up with some other kind of wording that would get us to back off and just be silent. That's going to take an awful lot of good wording in my mind. But if they can come up with something, I'm willing to listen. And they have invited school board members, superintendents. I don't know if teachers have been in there or not, but they've had several meetings. They just had one yesterday. Our leadership has been representing the superintendents, and it's a superintendent out of Nebo. He's a real fine representative to have in that position.
Is
Very
it on the
knowledgeable.
14th?
Huh?
Is it on the 14th
14th.
that they've invited school board members?
No, just superintendents.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know when school board members, I guess you might get a message at some point saying they want to present something to school board members, but this is the first time that they're bringing all the soups together to try and explain what they probably talked about tonight. So, just one more item. We probably have more personnel issues going on right now in this district than we've had in a long, long time. And we generally don't comment on personnel items, but when people take it to the Facebook and the internet, we just kind of felt like we had to get some information out to you. So that information is certainly covered by personnel laws, and it's not available for the general public. And we are never going to get into a tit for tat with any employee for any reason whatsoever. So, but I want you to know that I believe that in all the incidences that I'm knowledgeable about, our people have gone way beyond trying to accommodate concerns of employees, but some employees have elected just to go their own direction. And so if you hear something and you want to know more, you can give me a call, but we just generally don't talk about personnel issues. So, but there's quite a few of them right now for some reason. I have no idea why it's all come at a particular time, but we'll get through them. And but I just want you to know your employees, I think, have done a wonderful job of trying to address issues that have been raised. So.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else?
To speak to your state silo revenue issue, my little poster that has the silos on it, that little presentation, I've done 3 times this week, and I'm pretty sure every parent that's been in the room that I've done that presentation for is very offended.
Offended?
Yes, that the state is not giving all the leaving all the income tax
Okay.
in the silo for education.
Yeah.
And so that could give you some leverage to, or some speaking points.
It's gonna be the parents of this state and grandparents and anybody who's concerned about education who are gonna turn this legislature around. It's not gonna be superintendents.
Well, the thing is, though, that in the 3 places that I presented it this week, no one there understood that or knew it before.
Yeah.
So I told them, I'm giving you this information because I want your feedback. Are we on the right track to fight for this? And the second point that I'm giving you this information is, if it goes to the ballot, I want you to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I want you to know what it means in case the question is worded like the gas tax question last year.
Yep.
And nobody understands it. So I want you to understand and talk to your neighbors.
Thank you.
So they are talking, and I haven't had one parent who was happy about that.
Yeah, I would sure hope that would be the case. Now, Gary did represent me at a district-wide, was it southern end, or was it the whole region?
It was Logan and Cashville.
Okay. And the legislators were there, we didn't know that. But Gary said very little, in fact, nothing really came up from the legislators on the tax issue. And from parents and PTA people who were there, the school safety issue was their biggest concern. And Lyle made a comment that Logan has apparently finished off all their schools to a one entrance. Go ahead and explain.
Oh, sorry.
Why don't you step up to the mic?
Wow.
That woke us up.
Yeah.
This is still on. The issue that parents have is just that school safety. They worry about the ability to access our buildings, and if you think of a lot of our buildings, even if we lock everything but the front door, that front door, many of our buildings, you can walk in and go just almost about anywhere, or at least get into half of the building without anybody detecting who you are or where you're at. So I think what's happened, and this just came out in that meeting, that maybe what they've done is they've put up a second set of doors and created what you'd call a vestibule between, so that you had a little bit more control. Some of our newer schools are set up that way already, that we've built as of late, so that we can route anybody through the office before they actually make it into the hallways. We went down to Davis County. I went to visit one of our principals that we just hired, and we went in through a first door, Tim and I, and there was a doorbell. We pushed the button, and a voice just said, "Can I help you?" We couldn't see anyone, but the secretary, knew we were there. We said we were there to see the principal, our vice principal. We were informed that he wasn't there at that time. We said, "Okay, great," and we turned around and left. But there was no getting past that, at that point. I talked to this vice principal, and he said, when the bell rings first thing in the morning, or that 10, 15 minutes before the bell rings, those doors are open so kids can just come in. But then as soon as that second bell rings and school starts, it kind of goes into a lockdown like that. And so I think that's what parents are looking for. We've got one group of parents, one elementary school. We have a PTA who is willing to do a fundraiser. They're willing to get their husbands involved, some who are in construction, to build those second set of doors. And I mean, it's getting to that point where they're just asking. They just want it to feel a little safer to the access of the building. So I think it is something that we're going to need to look at.
Yeah, and I know Bruce has given it some look-see in the past. We just need to get a handle on what it would cost, and probably going to be a part of the next bond before we'd be able to take care of all those needs. We've just got buildings that it's not going to take just a set of doors. It's going to take reconfiguration, and so.
And I had about 4 parents after the meeting. I spent another 40 minutes talking with them about this, and that's kind of what I explained with our last bond. We took a look at the seismic issues, the earthquake safety, and we addressed that within that bond. And I said, it may be same thing. Maybe our next bond, we could look at addressing that, but didn't know for sure.
Just a comment, because I was at Cache High. They just put in some kind of film on the windows in their vestibule that is supposed to make it bulletproof so the glass doesn't shatter should someone shoot through it or hit it or whatever. And apparently they tried it, and that was pretty good, or it worked, or what. I don't know. Cherie would have to tell you. But the thing that I thought was great about that was Sandy Hook had their doors locked, so no one could get in, and the intruder just shot the glass out and got in. So that might be something to think about in the future as well. What can we add to the glass?
Yeah, there's plenty of things to worry
Yeah,
about.
there are a lot of
Yeah.
things to worry about.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Thank you, Gary.
Yes. All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the district and all that you do. Superintendent, appreciate all that you do. Board members, thanks. I really feel great how we have the board on committees and reporting, and we're staying abreast of things a little bit better than in the past, so thanks for doing that. And we'll go ahead and adjourn. Awesome. Would you like your picture?